Hello and welcome to the fourth tutorial, which is all about fonts. Now, because we're using Illustrator on the school's remote desktop, we are limited in fonts to the ones that are built into the school system. The good news is that there are lots of them. So the school has plenty of fonts, hundreds in fact of fonts. And the way that we select fonts in Illustrator when we have a bit of text like this one, is to go up here to in the context sensitive menu. It will give us text options because we have text selected, and there is a drop down box here where you can choose from lots of different fonts, but this isn't much good because we can't see what they look like. So the way that I recommend that you do this is to right click on the text that you've created and choose font from this menu. If you do that, you will at least get a bit of a preview of what the text looks like. And there are lots of them. They vary in quality, but there are some useful ones. So there are kind of what we would call cursive fonts, which look handwritten. There are kind of bold style fonts. They kind of stand out from the others on the list. So this is Rockwell Extra Bold, which is a nice bold serif font because it has the serifs at the end of the stems. There are cursive style fonts that look like this. So there are some good fonts available, but it might be that you look through the list and you don't like any of them. And the next question is, what do we do about that? Well, we're not allowed to install fonts, even though there are many, many fonts available on the internet. But what we can do is go onto the internet, still within the school remote desktop. We can go to a website like Dafont. This is Dafont, dafont.com. And in Dafont, there are hundreds and hundreds of fonts that are available to download. But we can't download them, unfortunately. But there is a little workaround that I'll show you. So what we can do is, let's say we wanted to find a font that looked handwritten. We could go to the handwritten theme section, and it will then give us a range of fonts that look handwritten. And what we can then do is type the name of our TV series here. So in the preview box, type "The Man Who Owns Me," and then click on submit, and it will then give us a preview of what that text would look like with in these various fonts. If we find one that we like, what we can do is take a screenshot of it. So let's say we wanted to use this one. This is quite nice, quite interesting. We can go to all programs, accessories, and the snipping tool, and we can take a snip of the preview like that, and then we can copy it, come back into Illustrator and paste it. Now, having taken a screenshot of a website, what we've actually got there is what's called a bitmap graphic made up of pixels. So if I zoom in, we can see that these are actually, this is a bitmap graphic and made up of pixels. But what we can do in Illustrator is convert that to vectors. So if I click on the image that I've brought in, I'll get the option at the top here to image trace. If I click, Illustrator will convert this to a vector. Now, it won't do it perfectly the first time, so we may have to change some of the parameters of the way that it traces that image. And if I click on this panel, the image trace panel, I've got the option to increase the number of paths, which will give us a truer kind of representation of what the original graphic looked like. What I usually do is turn down the corners and turn down noise. And what we should find is that that gives us a better representation of the original image. We can ignore white because we're only interested in the black tracing. So we'll click on ignore white, and if we just close this, Let's just zoom in a little bit and make sure that this has done it correctly. That's not bad. So Control and 0. And what we then need to do to confirm that is click on Expand. And what we now have is vector objects. So if I click and ungroup, what I can now do is delete everything that isn't black, like that. And these are now, each letter is a vector object, just like the way that we created outlines for the text that Illustrator had done. We now have the same situation where we can choose individual words and reposition them if we want to. We could do that with specific letters. So you now have kind of creative control over the placement of each one of these words. So I could bring these closer together if I wanted to, and start to think about creative placement of all of these different words like that. So that's a kind of a workaround because we are not able to install fonts from Dafont. If you are one of the people that's using Illustrator natively on your own system, then of course you can just download fonts from Dafont, install them on your computer, and then just use them as you would any other font in Illustrator. But this is a nice workaround if you're not able to do that. If I wanted to color, having placed these into position, what I may decide to then do is group them again, so Control and G. So they're just one object now. And then I could, if I wanted to, alter the color. I just need to ungroup those because there are some objects that shouldn't be there, like that one. And so we have something that looks closer to what we had in mind originally. So this is only the first stage, talking about fonts. Now we're going to work our way through the different effects that you can achieve in Illustrator if you want a specific look for your ident. Thanks for watching.